in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "Angels were created from light, jinn were created from a smokeless flame of fire, and Adam was created from what was described to you." So what are the jinns? Jinn is an Arabic collective noun deriving from the Semitic root jnn, whose primary meaning is to hide or to adapt. The idea of being concealed or hidden extends to several other significant Arabic terms derived from the same root. For example, majnun. This word means possessed or insane, stemming from the notion that a person's mind is covered or hidden by an external influence. Jannah. Translating to garden or heaven, Jannah refers to a hidden, lush, and beautiful place. Janan, meaning embryo or fetus, Janan refers to a developing child in the womb, which is literally hidden. Some scholars relate the Arabic term jinn to the Latin genius, a guardian spirit of people and places in Roman religion. Another suggestion holds that the word is of Persian origin and appeared in the form of the Avestic Jinni, a wicked female spirit. Jinni were among various creatures in the possibly even pre-Zoroastrian mythology of the peoples of Iran. Other scholars argue for an Arabic origin, with jinn being spirits causing psychic and bodily effects. There are ideas that jinn are evil spirits or ghosts. Some even say they are the souls of the dead. These ideas are totally wrong. They are the unique creature of Allah, just like we are. They have bodies, and they have free will. They have consciousness. They can choose to do good and to do evil. They can accept faith and they can reject it. As such, they are held accountable for their actions and will face judgment on the day of resurrection, just as humans do. And they were created for a purpose. As Allah, in verse 56 of chapter 51, says, "And I did not create the jinn and mankind except to worship me." They also eat and drink and can give birth. They are also subject to a life cycle, but they can live much longer than humans. They are known to be much faster and stronger than humans. They can see and hear the things humans do, and some have the ability to influence human action, quietly influencing men and women to make choices that may not be in their best interests. In some Arab traditions, the jinn are said to be the original inhabitants of the earth, and once ruled the planet after battling other life forms known as hin, made of wind, and bin, made from water. Imam Tabari says that most scholars of tafsir state that the jinn were created before Adam. Before their creation, however, the earth was inhabited by Hanun and Banan, malevolent spirits and calamities. These malevolent entities had dominated the earth, spreading corruption and wickedness. In response, Allah Almighty sent the jinn to overpower and eliminate them. Once the jinn vanquished these spirits, they established their own settlements on earth, taking their place. After settling on earth, jinn started to cause corruption. So Allah sent the army of angels. Angels fought with them, killed them, and cast them out to the waters. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, said, "Satan's throne is in the sea, and he sends out his troops every day to mislead people. The one who causes the greatest mischief among people is considered the highest in rank with him." What are they made up of, and why we cannot see them? Allah, in verse 27 of Surah Hijr, says, "As for the jinn, we created them earlier from smokeless fire." Let's talk science about the smokeless fire. The outmost layer of the sun is called the chromosphere and corona. There is a temperature of 4,000 degrees Celsius. Then follows the photosphere, located beneath the corona, having a temperature of 5,700 degrees Celsius. Inside the photosphere lies the plasma interior. Here the temperature is 30,000 degrees centigrade. At this temperature, the atoms lose their electrons, which wander freely. Scientists debate whether life exists in the sun based on the rules of physics and chemistry. As one moves toward the sun's center, the temperature escalates to several million degrees Celsius. At this extreme heat, electrons are completely stripped from their atoms, resulting in a sea of freely moving electrons and positively charged ions. This state of matter, where positive and negative ions move independently, is known as plasma. Plasma might be likened to the smokeless fire described in the Quran. In the sun's core, temperatures reach around 10 million degrees Celsius. Here, the density is 5 times greater than that of solid gold, making it denser than any known material on Earth. Plasma is a state of matter where gases are ionized into free electrons and ions. Magnetic fields can influence the behavior of these charged particles. In devices like tokamaks and stellarators, strong magnetic fields are used to confine and stabilize plasma, preventing it from dissipating. The principle of magnetic confinement demonstrates that magnetic fields can effectively control and maintain the structure of ionized gases. Magnetohydrodynamics is the study of the dynamics of conducting fluids, like plasma, in the presence of magnetic fields. It provides equations that describe how magnetic fields interact with plasma. These interactions can lead to the formation of stable structures and patterns. In plasma physics, toroidal shapes are common, where magnetic fields confine plasma in a donut-shaped configuration. The magnetic field lines wrap around the plasma, stabilizing it and allowing it to maintain a defined shape. So, it can be theorized that the jinns are composed of complex patterns of magnetic forces and groups of moving charges, existing in the form of symbiosis. This concept suggests that jinns, or potential inhabitants of a hypothetical plasma land, have a unique form of life that relies on both electrical charges and magnetic fields. The interactions between positive and negative ions, influenced by magnetic forces, contribute to the stability and movement of these entities. In physics, it's known that moving electrical charges, or ions, can affect one another's motion. This principle is akin to how proteins and nucleic acids influence biological processes on Earth. The combination of magnetic forces and electrical charges in such a system can lead to the formation of stable structures. Thus, the jinns are envisioned as being able to use these fundamental physical interactions to maintain their form and functions. This can be the meaning of the smokeless fire. If not, then surely this flame is different from the usual fire that humans utilize in their regular living. It's similar to how Allah created humans from dirt, but we are not the same as the dirt on the ground, but share the same properties. The materials that Allah used are a different type of fire, or dirt that only He has access to. So where do they live, and why cannot we see them? The light spectrum is a range of electromagnetic waves, with visible light being just a small portion that humans can see. This visible spectrum includes the colors we perceive, from red to violet. However, beyond this visible range, there are many other types of light, such as ultraviolet, UV rays, infrared, radio waves, X-rays, and gamma rays. While we cannot see these types of lights with our eyes, we can detect them using special instruments. Now, the smokeless fire from which jinns are created has a frequency that lies outside the entire electromagnetic spectrum, including both visible and invisible parts. This means that their essence is far beyond anything we can detect, even with advanced technology. Just as our eyes are limited to perceiving only a small part of the spectrum, our entire sensory and technological capabilities are limited when it comes to perceiving or detecting the energy associated with jinns. There is another plausible theory that says they coexist with us, but in a parallel dimension. In verse 7 of Surah Al-Araf, Allah states, "Indeed, He and His tribe see you from where you do not see them." This verse implies that Satan and his followers possess a level of perception and presence beyond our own. This concept can be better understood through the lens of modern theoretical physics, particularly string theory and M theory, which suggest that our universe might be a three-dimensional membrane within a higher dimensional space. String theory posits that the fundamental components of the universe are not point-like particles, but rather tiny, vibrating strings. These strings can vibrate at different frequencies, and their vibrations correspond to different particles and forces. According to this theory, our universe is composed of multiple dimensions beyond the familiar three spatial dimensions and one time dimension. In the most advanced version of string theory, known as M theory, the universe is described as having up to 11 dimensions, 10 spatial dimensions, and one time dimension. To understand how jinns might fit into this framework, consider the following. In string theory, higher dimensions are not directly observable in our three-dimensional world because they are compactified or curled up at incredibly small scales. This means that while our everyday experience is limited to three spatial dimensions, there are additional dimensions that influence the properties and behaviors of particles and forces in ways that we cannot directly perceive. If jinns are to be understood as existing in higher dimensions, they could be entities that interact with or exist within these additional dimensions that are beyond our direct sensory experience. According to string theory, these higher dimensions could allow for forms of existence and energy that are radically different from what we encounter in our three-dimensional reality. For instance, the concept of smokeless fire could be interpreted as a form of energy or matter that exists within these higher dimensions, where the properties and interactions of particles differ from those in our three-dimensional space. In this context, jinns could be entities that inhabit or are composed of matter and energy from these higher dimensions. The smokeless fire mentioned in Islamic texts might correspond to a state of matter or energy in these additional dimensions that do not have a direct analog in our three-dimensional world. In essence, the properties of this higher dimensional energy could be such that it appears smokeless and non-material from our perspective. Let's explore the concept of dimensions for better understanding. In a one-dimensional space, movement is confined to a single direction. Imagine a straight line. A being existing in this space can only move forward or backward along that line. For example, consider an ant crawling along a tightrope. Its movement is limited to the length of the rope, with no possibility to move in any other direction. In a two-dimensional space, movement is possible in two directions. Visualize a flat plane, such as a sheet of paper. A being in this space can move left or right along one axis and up or down along another. For instance, if you place a piece of paper on a table, you can slide it left, right, up, or down, but you cannot move it into or out of the table. It remains confined to the plane of the paper. In a three-dimensional world, movement extends to three directions. Imagine a room where you can move left or right, forward or backward, and up or down. This third dimension adds depth to the space, allowing you to navigate through its volume. For instance, you can walk across a room, climb a ladder, or reach into a cabinet, all actions that involve moving through three-dimensional space. Next is the fourth dimension. In Einstein's theory of relativity, it is regarded as a temporal dimension. Not only may one travel left, right, up, down, and in depth in this dimension, but they can also travel both forward and backward in time. The fifth and sixth dimensions follow, and so on up to the 11th. Question: why can we not perceive these higher dimensions? In our three-dimensional existence, we can fully perceive only three dimensions. This means we can completely understand beings in the first and second dimensions from our vantage point. For instance, beings in the first dimension would be visible to us from perspectives that do not exist for them. Imagine a line, which exists in the first dimension. To a creature confined to this line, it can only move forward or backward. However, If we, existing in 3 dimensions, were to observe this line from above or below, we would see the entire line at once and be able to perceive the entire length of it, which the line's inhabitants cannot. Similarly, we can interact with and understand the 2nd dimension from a point of view that does not exist within that dimension. Now consider a 2-dimensional plane like a sheet of paper. Beings living on this plane can only move left, right, forward, or backward, but they cannot perceive the dimension perpendicular to their plane. From our 3-dimensional perspective, we can observe the entire plane from a height or depth that doesn't exist for the beings on it. We can see their whole world at once and interact with it in ways they cannot comprehend, such as drawing shapes or objects on their plane from above. Islamic scholar Maulana Abul Ala Maududi offers insight into the Quranic perspective on jinns and their capabilities, particularly their ability to traverse and interact with different realms. According to Maududi, several verses in the Quran describe the jinn's limitations and abilities in relation to space travel and their interaction with the heavens. Specifically, Surah Al-Hijr, Surah As-Safat, and Surah Al-Mulk discuss how jinns can ascend to the heavens, but are restricted from going beyond certain boundaries. They are also described as being prevented from overhearing celestial conversations, with meteorites driving them away if they attempt to do so. Indeed, we have adorned the nearest heaven with an adornment of stars, and there is protection from every rebellious devil. They cannot listen to the highest assembly, for they are pelted from every side, repelled, and for them is a constant punishment, except one who snatches some words by theft. But they are pursued by a burning flame, piercing in the darkness. The thing is, how are jinn able to travel to the farthest reaches of the first sky? For a being confined to the 3rd dimension, this seems almost impossible. Their ability to accomplish such feats suggests that they must exist in a higher dimension. And that wraps up this episode on jinns. In the next 2 episodes, I will explore the different types of jinn, their unique abilities, their lifespans, and their complex relationships with humans.